Credit card debt is usually framed as a personal failure, as if people woke up one day and decided to make bad choices, as if carrying balances automatically means you were reckless, careless, or irresponsible. That story gets repeated so often that many people accept it as truth. But credit card debt is rarely about bad choices. In a moment, I'll explain why so many people end up in credit card debt, even when they're trying to be careful, responsible, and thoughtful with their money. If you're carrying credit card debt right now, you probably remember how it started. It didn't begin with luxury spending. It began quietly. A bill that arrived earlier than expected, a medical expense, a car repair, groceries that cost more than planned, a gap between paychecks that needed to be filled. Credit cards were there to help. They made it possible to keep going without falling behind. They felt like a tool, not a trap. For a while they worked. But over time, something changed. The balance stopped going down. The minimum payment stayed manageable, but progress slowed. Eventually, the debt started feeling heavy. It's not just financially, but emotionally. If that's where you are, it's important to understand that this didn't happen because you lacked discipline. It happened because of how the system works. Think about modern life in the United States. Full-time work doesn't guarantee margin anymore. Housing costs take a larger share of income. Transportation costs more. Insurance premiums rise quietly. Healthcare expenses appear without warning. Wages haven't kept up with all of it. When income and expenses barely line up, credit cards become a buffer. They absorb pressure, they smooth gaps, and they do exactly what they're designed to do. In a moment, I'll explain why that design matters more than people realize. Credit cards don't just lend money. They sell convenience and flexibility. They let you delay pain. That's incredibly appealing when money is tight. And when you're under pressure, delaying pain can feel like survival. The problem is what happens after. Most credit cards today carry interest rates in the 20 to 30% range. That interest isn't obvious day to day. Doesn't show up as a separate bill you consciously approve. It quietly accumulates in the background. Here's a simple example. If you carry a $3,000 balance at 24% interest, you're paying around $700 a year just in interest. That $700 doesn't reduce what you owe, doesn't improve your situation. It simply keeps you in place. You can make every minimum payment on time and still feel stuck. That's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because minimum payments are designed to keep balances alive. This is where people start blaming themselves. They think they should have done better, been smarter, tried harder. But the math was always working against them. Then credit scores enter the picture, which adds another layer of stress. Your credit score isn't measuring character, it's measuring risk. One of the biggest parts of that score is payment history, which makes up roughly 1/3 of the total. Paying on time matters because late payments signal instability. That's why even a single late payment can hurt more than people expect. But here's the part that confuses many people. Payment history mostly protects you from damage. It doesn't automatically help you recover if other risk signals stay high. Another major factor is credit utilization, which simply means how much of your available credit you're using. If you have a $10,000 total credit limit and you're using $8,000, that's 80% utilization. Even with perfect payments, that level of usage signals risk. This is why people feel like they're doing everything right and still not moving forward. In a few minutes, I'll explain why lowering balances even slightly can matter more than people think. Now think about how people are told to handle credit card debt. Spend less, budget better, cut out small luxuries. Those ideas aren't wrong, but they're incomplete. When someone is already operating with very little margin, cutting small expenses rarely creates enough relief. It might help emotionally, but it doesn't change the structure of the problem. This is where people make choices that feel logical under pressure. They shuffle balances. They open new cards to buy time. They chase quick fixes that promise relief. None of these choices mean someone is bad with money. They're normal responses to stress. This is also where people accidentally make things worse. For example, many people focus only on paying on time and ignore balances. Paying on time matters, but it doesn't reduce utilization. Others aggressively pay down one card while letting another stay maxed out, not realizing how utilization is calculated across all cards. Some people close cards to feel in control, not realizing that closing accounts can increase utilization and hurt scores in the short term. And many people look for fast money ideas because they feel desperate, only to end up disappointed or burned. Later, I'll explain what actually helps instead, without hype or shortcuts. Before that, it's important to understand why credit card debt feels so personal. Debt carries shame in this culture. It's treated as a moral issue instead of a structural one. That shame keeps people quiet. It keeps them isolated. It makes problem-solving harder. Credit card debt is rarely the result of one bad decision. It's usually the result of many reasonable decisions made under pressure. Once you see that, the goal changes. It's no longer about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the system and working within it. Let's go back to utilization for a moment, because this is where small changes can make a noticeable difference. Imagine you have a $5,000 limit and you're using $4,000. That's 80% utilization. If you manage to bring that balance down to $3,500, your utilization drops to 70%. That shift alone can help more than months of perfect payments. This is why progress often feels invisible until something finally clicks. Interest slows everything down. Utilization keeps scores suppressed. And payment history quietly waits for consistency. That combination makes people feel trapped. Now let's talk about income, because this is the part people avoid discussing honestly. Willpower alone can't solve a math problem. When expenses are high and income is fixed, there's only so much discipline can do. At some point, income flexibility matters more than effort. That doesn't mean chasing risky schemes. It means choosing slow, boring, predictable ways to bring in extra money. This is where realistic side income comes in. Gig work works because it's flexible and immediate. Freelancing works because skills compound. Service-based work works because demand stays steady. These options aren't exciting, but they're controllable. Fast money usually backfires because it relies on hype, timing, or luck. Slow money works because it's boring and reliable. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need one option that fits into it. Now let's slow this down and make it practical. Today, the goal is awareness, not perfection. Look at your balances. Notice which cards have the highest interest. Avoid adding new balances if possible. That alone reduces pressure. This week, focus on protection. Let's automate minimum payments so nothing slips. Look for small ways to reduce utilization, even slightly. Progress doesn't need to be dramatic to matter. This month, focus on margin. One realistic income move. One boring, predictable step that creates breathing room. That breathing room is what makes everything else easier. Credit card debt isn't proof that you made bad choices. It's often proof that you were trying to survive in a system that quietly leans on credit. Financial repair is slow. It doesn't feel exciting, but is possible. And once you understand what's really happening, you stop fighting yourself and start working with reality instead. There's more clarity ahead. We'll take it one piece at a time.